It's not great, I admit that, but it's the best BYU can come up with. We're just going to have to make do. I'll explain.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is up, everybody? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being everydayers with us right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. This is your original daily podcast focused on all things BYU sports, and we are brought to you today by our friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver who likes to push things a little bit further? Ever wonder what the next adventure could be right around the corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them out all today at nissanusa.com. All right, let's dive right in on today's show. And I mentioned there was something I needed to explain on the podcast. And BYU football begins their first full week of spring drills. Officially will be the second week of BYU spring camp. They'll have 3 practices slated for this week. The first is today, later this afternoon. I will be out there at the BYU SAB, the student athlete building, later this afternoon. We'll have about 25-ish minutes of media observation. Then we'll obviously have interviews after that. But be sure to pass along anything I learn in due time when it comes to that. But the point I'm trying to make on today's show is that, is anybody necessarily pleased with BYU's quarterback situation? I frankly do not think anybody, whether they're like myself who covers BYU on a day in and day out basis, or anybody who might be out kind of on the periphery who's got that 30,000 foot view of BYU, whether it's a national media member, the frank situation for BYU is that you have 2 quarterbacks that just don't necessarily scream household names for the BYU Cougars. And that's not ideal, especially when the quarterback position is like the all-important position in football at any level in this day and age. It just is the most important position. You have to have a difference maker if you truly want to be a solid, if not outstanding football program. And it's nothing against Jake Retzlaff. It's nothing against Gerry Bohanon, but neither one of those guys, I think, has anybody, and I mean anybody, all that excited. Now, if you are excited about one or the other, good for you. But I'm speaking more generally. I think the BYU fans were expecting BYU to find somebody in the transfer portal who would come in and really have Cougar fans jonesing for that guy to become the starter. There was a lot of hype about Jake Retzlaff last year, and I was one of those that was relaying that because all the conversations I'd had with people talking about Retzlaff raved about him, and there is still time for Jake Retzlaff to become a quote-unquote household name for BYU, but his impression he left, I think, last season in the final 4 games of the year left a lot to be desired. And I think that has kind of had a linger over effect here for the BYU football program. The situation that BYU finds itself in is it has to make the best of the situation it has right now. And that is that they have said that it's a 2-man race for the starting quarterback position for the Cougars. It's Jake Retzlaff or it's Gerry Bohanon. Are either one of them an ideal prospect, the guy that you're pointing at saying that's the next NFL quarterback to come out of Provo? No, I don't think either one of them screams that at this current juncture. Could one of them rise above and become that guy for BYU? In theory, yes, that is a possibility. The situation, though, is that I'm not sure that either one of them is going to be able to make that type of impression in spring camp here and really kind of seize hold of the starting quarterback position for BYU and establish himself as the de facto starter going into the summer. I truly believe, I sincerely believe this based on early observations I've had, as well as what I am hearing, just chatter when it comes to BYU football with the conversations I've had, is that this is a quarterback battle that is absolutely a battle. It is going to linger on into the summer. It's going to linger into training camp in August. And come August 31st against Southern Illinois, maybe a week ahead of that, we'll finally find out who BYU is going to declare their starter. That frankly is how I think this is going to go. It is going to be neck and neck, barring something completely unforeseen, an injury, a guy just really starting to own the position, no matter what it is. It feels like this is going to be one that is unlike many position battles that you typically have a guy that you're like, okay, that's the incumbent. He's kind of the guy who's the odds-on favorite to win this job. I truly believe that Gerry Bohanon and Jake Retzlaff are dead even. It is 50-50. It is going to go back and forth. One of them is going to have a good day. Another's going to have a down day. And that is going to lend itself to, I think, some interesting outputs, some performances, whatever you want to term it, that will ultimately tip the scales one way or the other. I don't envy Aaron Roderick's position because he is going into a season that, frankly, I think a lot of people believe that it's like a do or die season for Aaron Roderick. I don't think it's quite that drastic in my mind. That's my personal opinion on the matter. It's not anything I have inside intel of. I'll be freely admitting that. But I believe that 2024 is a year that Aaron Roderick is going to either show his absolute genius as an offensive coordinator, or it's going to be another year where BYU is going to struggle and a lot of heat. I mean, more heat than already was heaped upon the BYU offensive coaching staff last year will be heaped upon them because of the failures, most particularly, it feels like, of that quarterback position. I actually think BYU's depth at other positions, the running back group, the wide receivers, tight ends, even the offensive line, I think they've all got adequate bodies, a star talent, and I think that they have got the capability of holding up. But once again, that quarterback position is the all-important position. Are you going to have a difference maker there? And if you don't, man, the proposition for BYU, there's a lot of over-unders out there with around 4 or 4.5 wins for BYU. There are odds makers out there who have BYU at the bottom of the 16-team Big 12 this summer. And honestly, I think it all boils down to they're looking at the quarterback position for BYU and saying, wow, I don't think BYU has a quarterback, nor do they have anybody on the roster that feels like they can emerge and become that guy. And I think that is something BYU's got to be able to prove. One of these guys, whether it's Jake Retzlaff, whether it's Gerry Bohanon, I don't care what team you're on. If you're team Retzlaff, if you're team Bohanon, the bigger point is BYU needs one of them to step up and really become a star for the Cougars. If not, could be a little bit of a dicey proposition going into this fall. All right, coming up here in just a minute, we'll talk about a former BYU quarterback who I thought had a fairly solid performance at the NFL Combine. 2 other former Cougars also out there in Indianapolis over the weekend. We'll react to how things went for Kingsley, Suamataia, Rehkow, as well as Kedon Slovis as we roll on right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan. Are you the kind of driver who likes to push things just a little bit further, my friends? Ever wonder what an adventure could be around the corner for you guys? Our friends at Nissan have a line of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. Check out the 2024 Nissan Rogue. It's an incredible, perfect fit for city drives and also great escapes if you want to get off the grid as well. It's classic exclusive, Google built-in. It's always you're updating your assistant to call on for almost anything you might need. The best part is, gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. So it's right there, literally at your fingertips. You also can check out the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. It has room up for up to 8 passengers in it, expansive cargo capacity, and advanced 4x4 capability. Or if you need the big rig out there, as I like to call it, get the 2024 Nissan Armada. It will change what you expect from a full-size SUV, tow bigger, and explore further with the 2024 Armada. Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure courtesy of our friends over at Nissan. Shop nissanusa.com. It's once again all courtesy of your friends over at Nissan. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at Utah Community Credit Union. Now, Utah Community Credit Union has upgraded their checking accounts, and they have enhanced them with more benefits, more savings, and more online protections than ever before. A lot more. Paired with the most advanced and comprehensive mobile banking tools, elevated checking from UCCU is a must-have financial tool packed with lifestyle security and financial benefits that you guys need to check out. The financial benefits alone include free ATMs nationwide, an exclusive discount on any UCCU auto, recreational vehicle, or personal loan, an extra 10% cash back on every purchase made with your UCCU Visa cashback credit card, and also UCCU's a credit score toolbox, a state-of-the-art set of tools designed to help you improve your credit score and enhance your financial well-being. Elevated checking is available and free whenever you use one of the following. Use your debit or credit card 15 times or more a month, make a monthly direct deposit of $500 or more, or maintain an average daily balance of $1,500. Otherwise, at UCCU's elevated checking is just $6 a month. To take advantage of all of the features they have available to you guys, visit uccu.com and open an elevated checking account online today. Stop by any branch as well if you want to open that in person. It's all courtesy of your friends over at UCCU. Love where you bank. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being everydayers with us here on the podcast. If you have not done so already, please sign up for our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. I'm going to be out there at BYU football practice, as I mentioned, later on this afternoon. If you want literally up-to-the-minute updates coming directly to your phone via text message, the only way to get that is to join our Locked On Cougars Insider Group. You get a 14-day free trial, just $5 a month afterwards. We had a great chat with a bunch of you guys Saturday night during the BYU TCU basketball game. It's a really, really fun way to access this show, have a connection with you out there in Cougar Nation. And once again, also supports us financially as well. So 14-day free trial. Sign up in the show links, whether you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the notes below, or if you're listening to this wherever you get your podcast, it's also in the show notes, wherever you get that as well. So join us today and get up-to-the-minute updates once again as I'm out there at BYU later this afternoon. All right, BYU football had 3 former Cougars in Indianapolis for the NFL Combine over the weekend. And I think overall, a fairly solid impression was made by all 3 former Cougars. I think the big winner of the weekend, honestly, is Kedon Slovis. Now, many of you saw this on social media. If you weren't watching it on the NFL Network, he ran his first 40 time in 4.6 seconds. And I was like, wow, Kedon Slovis running a 4.6. Okay, props to him. And then he won up that by running a 4.56 40-yard dash. Very impressive numbers for Kedon Slovis. The frank situation of the matter for him is, okay, when did Kedon Slovis at any point, I'm not talking just at BYU, when did Kedon Slovis at any point during his college career, which spanned 3 different schools over 5 years, he had over 10,000 passing yards, was 11,000 and change, whatever it was, when did he ever show that type of foot speed? I don't recall seeing it, and maybe it just wasn't utilized. Maybe he got a boost in his pre-draft training. But the other thing about it is Kedon Slovis showed, I think, athletically, he's a better athlete than I think everybody, and yours truly included, going into the NFL Combine. It's not a sure bet, but I believe that due to his athleticism, I think some of his throwing, he had a really, really nice deep ball during the throwing drills when some other quarterbacks were sitting out. I think that Kedon has solidified himself as a day 3 candidate, and that's obviously rounds 4 through 7. I think he's very much a guy who's going to be at the best, in my mind, at tail end of the 6th round and probably a 7th round draft pick, but very well could also end up as an undrafted free agent. But I think he made a solid impression over the weekend at the NFL Combine. Now, Kingsley Suamataia, I thought, made a good impression as well. Now, this was a guy, remember, that Bruce Feldman from The Athletic does his freaks list every year, and there was some hype for him from BYU's training staff in that freaks list last year, saying that he ran the 40 in a 4.8 second and change time. And had he done that, by the way, had Kingsley run a 4.8 whatever 40, he absolutely would have been a bigger rock star than he already is in the NFL draft. Alas, he ran a 5.06 and a 5.04, which is a great time. He had a very solid 10-second split. That is the more important number for an NFL offensive lineman, is the ability to get off the ball in that first 10 yards of that 40-yard dash, is to be able to get down the field and motor. And the other thing about it is, when you watch Kingsley do his drills yesterday, I had a chance after I got done with my church meetings to sit down and watch the Sunday drills, and I thought he showed very, very well with his athleticism. The one thing that Kingsley always has had, and that's one thing that I've always been impressed by, is his lateral ability. This is a kid who at 6'4" and change and 320 some odd pounds moves incredibly well side to side for a man of that size. It should not be as easy as Kingsley makes it look. Now, a lot of people out there believe that he was a 2nd round pick going into the NFL Combine. Based on the projections I'm seeing, there's some people who are hyping him potentially to slide into the tail end of the 1st round, and that's awesome. Kingsley as a 1st round draft pick would be an awesome result for BYU. That would mean they've had back-to-back NFL offensive tackles drafted. Actually, no, be 3 straight NFL offensive tackles drafted who started at left tackle for BYU. If you go all the way back to Brady Christensen, and then you go to obviously Blake Freeland, and now most recently Kingsley Suamataia. BYU, frankly, could have themselves a 3 for 3 with starting quarterbacks being drafted and 3 for 3 for offensive left tackles being drafted. And that'd be a very, very nice feather in the cap of BYU when it comes to the development of their players. Ryan Rehkow is an interesting case as a punter because very rarely do specialists get drafted. You have to be a very, very special talent in many respects to be drafted as a specialist. But Rehkow, from all reports, made a good impression with teams out there at the NFL Combine. Specialists don't typically run the 40. They don't do the 225-pound bench press. They don't do the 3-cone drill. They're there essentially to kick and show what they're capable of doing. The biggest note of concern, it felt like, for Ryan Rehkow is that some teams are worried about he has a penchant apparently for line driving kicks. And any of you who watched him at times remember some of the kicks that he had returned for touchdowns last year. Those kicks, the whole adage, you outkicked your coverage. Well, Ryan Rehkow's got a howitzer for a right leg, and he absolutely outkicked his coverage. And when it doesn't have the right hang time on, it doesn't allow the secondary, your gunners to get down the field to get the tackles. That's going to absolutely hurt you. In the NFL, they're the best returners in the world, the best special teams in the world. And if you're going to outkick your coverage or have a line drive kick that is going to allow a returner to really take that ball and do something with it, that's asking for trouble. So it really feels like the hang time is the biggest question for Ryan Rehkow. But once again, he may be able to sacrifice a little bit of the prodigious length he has as a punter, but angle it a little bit higher and kick it a little higher with that higher hang time. That's what the NFL teams want. So overall, though, it felt like all three gentlemen who were out there in Indianapolis, like I said, made a solid impression on NFL scouts. It'd be awesome to see Kedon Slovis slide into the back end of the draft and at least give BYU 2 drafted players from this year's draft class. Could somebody via Pro Day, which the Big 12 Pro Day is coming up at the end of the month. It's going to be down there at the Star, down in it's now at Frisco, Texas. It's the training facility, I don't know what you want to call it. It's just like this big facility that the Dallas Cowboys own in Frisco. It's got a big training facility, and that's where the Big 12 is going to hold a centralized pro day, and BYU will be part of that. I'd like to see guys like Isaac Rex as well as Paul Miley, Max Tooley, other guys on that list that did not get the NFL Combine invite. I'd like to see them show out a pro day because you want to see guys when they get their opportunity to shine under the lights. And I felt like overall for the weekend, the 3 gentlemen who were at the NFL Combine made the most of their opportunities there. Can they make a doubly important good impression, I guess I'll say, when it comes to the Big 12 Pro Day? That'll be key because the reason why they're having this Big 12 Pro Day is to get all 32 NFL teams in the same facility with more eyes on the players from the Big 12 Conference and give them a better opportunity to go out and show what they're capable of. Now, it is invitation only, so the only concern I have is there may be 1 or 2 guys from BYU who have pro aspirations that the Big 12 does not invite to this event. That would be a bad deal if that's going to be how it goes. I would hope at least this year, for example, essentially extend an open invite to anybody from the schools who's looking to be a part of this. Now, that's probably a little pie in the sky-ish of me to suggest such a thing, but you got to give these guys an opportunity to live their dream and show what they're capable of to NFL personnel. There are diamonds in the rough found every single day when it comes to the NFL, and pro days are places that can come to fruition. I'd like to see more guys get that opportunity, but I thought the NFL Combine, reading up, watching, and consuming what I did of it, it sounds like BYU had a good representation in Indianapolis, and the next kind of benchmark along the path is going to be down there in Frisco at the Star when the Big 12 Pro Days take place. It'll be the final week of March, if I recall correctly. It's something like the 25th through the 30th, something like that. It's a week long, at least that's what the schedule says, and we'll be looking forward to that. I think it's a big opportunity. It's kind of the next step on the way to the NFL draft, and then, hey, next month it's April, and guess what? That's when the draft is happening, and then the dreams really come true for all of these guys. And we'll see where things pan out. And so, frankly, some of the guys will have to go the UFL route. They'll have to go to the new spring leagues and prove what they're capable of doing there if they want to continue their playing career. Or, as the NCAA is fond of saying, not all of our athletes are going to go pro in sports, but for these young men, you want to see them live that dream, and it's awesome to see more representation from BYU in the pro ranks, and it continues to grow, by the way, annually. There's a lot of people out there who like to put BYU, they don't develop NFL talent. Well, guess what? Their chief rival, I think Utah, I think I saw, was 28 active NFL players. Oh, BYU, that lowly little program in Provo, they have 24 active NFL players. So Cougars, they're doing things in the pro ranks, and it's awesome. I mean, it's really, really cool to see. And the hope is that they'll continue to show out on the biggest stages out there and continue to do what they're doing. And the next crop is coming. And it looks like at least one. Kingsley is a lock to be drafted at this point. That's obviously a positive. Can one or two more guys join him in this draft class? Then who else might be able to make an impression as an undrafted free agent? It's all going to be something we're going to have to kind of watch play out over the next month and change leading up to that weekend. It's now in Detroit this year for the NFL draft. So we'll be keeping you updated on everything going on with that as we draw a little bit closer to that. All right, coming up here in just a minute, we'll finish out this edition of the podcast with some updates on other BYU sports from the weekend that was. BYU baseball making a very positive impression in their first home series, I should say, against the Gonzaga Bulldogs. Also, BYU women's basketball knows exactly where they're seated in the Big 12 women's basketball tournament, when they will be playing. We'll talk about all that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Now, FanDuel wants to help you guys get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers, you get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. The best part is, whether you're into college hoops, NBA hoops, or literally anything else out there going on in the sports world right now, whether you're a hockey fan, they've got it all for you guys with our friends at FanDuel. An incredibly easy app to use. You can tap what you're looking for, place the bet, and you're on your way. It's really that simple. And the best part is you can bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams right now or beyond with quick bets, live same game parlays, exclusive props available only to FanDuel customers. You even got money lines, spreads, over-unders. No matter what you're looking for in the sports betting world, FanDuel is the answer for you guys. And once again, $150 if your first bet wins is right there. It's free money to play with. So take advantage of the opportunity today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot, my friends. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started today. It's all courtesy of your friends over at FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Appreciate all of you for being with us. Want to encourage you guys, if you've not done so already, check out the first ever national 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. It's also now available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. For example, my show talking about the monumental win BYU had last week against Kansas was on this 24/7 Locked On Sports Today channel. I think Wednesday morning, if I recall correctly. It's cool to see my face out there, but it's a really cool thing. So check it out today. It's find a Locked On Sports Today available on the Free Fire TV channels app and also wherever you get your podcast, particularly on YouTube. All right, a couple of notes before we go on today's show. BYU baseball swept Gonzaga over the weekend, a home weekend. That was a really, really good impression for BYU. Played a doubleheader on Friday due to the impending weather that was coming in on Saturday. And any of you who are here along the Wasatch Front know what the weather was like on Saturday. Crazy times. But BYU got a nice win, 11-2, before winning the nightcap 6-4. Combined with the 3-2 win on Friday, BYU ends the weekend 3-0 and is now back to 500 on the season at 5-5 overall. Stunningly enough, Gonzaga, one of the heavyweights, one of the power programs in the West Coast Conference that BYU struggled with for many, many years as members of the WCC. They're now 1-9 on the season. And obviously, it's early on, but that's not a good start for the Bulldogs, but a solid home weekend for BYU baseball. The nice part is that Trent Pratty said, I thought our guys played great today. We needed to put together a couple of wins, and it was a good weekend for us. Played error-free baseball today, which was big for this team. And obviously, playing error-free is going to be big for BYU as they start a Big 12 play. Now, they will head to UNLV tomorrow for a one-game matchup, and then I'm assuming they're going to fly out of McCarran, or now Harry Reid International, and travel to West Virginia. The first ever Big 12 series will be on the road for BYU baseball this weekend as they take on the West Virginia Mountaineers from March 7th to the 9th at Monongahela, man, I'm going to mangle this name, Monongahela County Ballpark out there in West Virginia. The 3-game series is going to be scheduled Thursday and Friday games at 3 o'clock Eastern time. That's 1 o'clock Mountain time. Then the Saturday game scheduled for 1 o'clock Eastern. That'll be 11 a.m. Mountain time. All three games will be aired live on Big 12 Now on ESPN+. That's actually, by the way, a big benefit of BYU being in the Big 12 is now baseball is going to have more games streaming and available. So check it out, my friends. It's a great way to support BYU athletics, and we'll see how things go this weekend. Also want to say congratulations to Brad Prolo. He broke his own 200 fly school record and delivered BYU's second Big 12 men's individual conference title as the league's 24 swim and dive championships moved over the weekend and wrapped up. So congratulations to Brad Prolo on that. It's really cool to see guys winning individual titles year one here in the Big 12. It's kind of validating in many respects. The BYU swimming and dive program may not be as far off as many might have believed it was going to be going in to the Big 12 conference. And then one other note for you guys is that I was going to also mention this. Men's swim and dive take third place at the Big 12 championship. So a solid debut in the Big 12 conference for the men's team. And then also BYU women's basketball. They have learned their fate in the Big 12 tournament. They're going to be the 10 seed taking on the number 7 seed Kansas. That'll be coming up Friday out there in Kansas City. It'll be a 4:30 Mountain Time tip there in Kansas City, the T-Mobile Center. BYU women finished the season with a tough loss, 71-46 loss to number 3 ranked Texas on Saturday in the regular season finale. But now as a 10 seed, they'll take on the Kansas Jayhawks on Friday and look to make a run in the Big 12 tournament. And like I said, that starts Friday afternoon. We'll see how they do. Now, 3 other notes for you guys in terms of teams in action today. The men's golf program is at Lamkin Invitational down in San Diego. The women's golf team is at the Julie Inkster Meadow Club Intercollegiate out in Fairfax, California. And then women's gymnastics is on the road tonight in Cedar City, taking on the Thunderbirds in a dual meet. That'll be at 7 o'clock Mountain Time at the America First Event Center in Cedar City on the campus of Southern Utah University. So there you go. Everything I got for you guys on this Monday edition of the show. As I mentioned, I'll be out of BYU football practice later this afternoon. A full recap of what I observed coming up on tomorrow's edition of the podcast. Scheduled to be joined later in the week, also by Connor Pay to talk about his impressions of the first week of spring drills. And also, we're going to be talking some BYU basketball. A huge game for the men's team as they head to number 8, as of recording of this podcast, of number 8, Iowa State on Wednesday night. We'll see where BYU is ranked on tomorrow's podcast as well. I'm assuming they're going to jump back in after that 2-0 week last week. We'll have plenty of coverage in the lead up to that game, and obviously finishing out the regular season for BYU this weekend with the games against the Cyclones and also against the Oklahoma State Cowboys. So a big week ahead. So be with us every single day. Be an everydayer with us here on the podcast. And obviously a big thank you to all of you for making it your first listen as always. So until tomorrow, my friends, thank you for joining us. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast.